What's new, 802? I'm Becca Hammond, and you're listening to Burlington Talks. Burlington Talks may include graphic or explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. I'm so excited to be talking today with Corey and Donnie from Concept Medley Games. Concept Medley Games is a Vermont-based company, and they specialize in board games so far. They have lots of ideas, though, so who knows where the future might take them. They've been nominated for a whole bunch of different awards. They've actually won a few of them, and they started in 2017 and had a very successful Kickstarter campaign. Thanks so much to Corey and Donnie. Let's get to it. Corey, Donnie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Can you both tell me just a little bit about yourselves? Where'd you come from? Where do you work? A little bit about your background.
I'll go first. This is Donnie. I am from originally Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. I lived there for about 21 years, went to university in the area, and then I moved up north and lived and bounced around a few places. Just before I moved to Vermont, I lived in Jersey City and worked in Manhattan, and that got old pretty quickly. So I moved to Vermont without a job, just because I loved it up here. I had been coming up to snowboard and visit friends for a number of years, and decided that Vermont seemed like a pretty cool place, and that was 9 years ago. So shortly after I moved up, I found a great job at dealer.com doing front end development, and I love it up here.
Awesome. So is that mostly, are you doing, so when you say front end, is that CSS, JavaScript, HTML? Where are you working?
Exactly. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I do have a lot of back-end experience, just because the lines get really blurred when you're programming. Sometimes you have to put on a lot of different hats. But front end is just what I love to do.
Cool. Good to hear. And then it sounds like you've been up and down the East Coast. Though it sounds like you just headed north, which
yeah, exactly, just up and up mostly. So
yeah, I guess if you snowboard, you said snowboard, right? Not
right.
ski. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, that makes sense that you would come here. We have great snowboarding weather most of the time. It keeps getting warmer, it seems like. But
yeah.
Cool. Well, awesome. Great to hear. So, Corey, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so this is Corey. I grew up in a small town in central New York near Syracuse. Went to school in Rochester, New York. Got a job straight out of college. Worked there for about a decade, and started getting bored. And I'm what they're called a passive applicant. I kind of just had my resume out there. I'm not even sure if it's still a thing, called Dice. Got contacted by dealer.com. They asked me to come out for an interview. I thought, why not? I'll go. If nothing else, it's a weekend trip to Vermont. And ended up loving the area, loving the company, and they actually talked me into moving out there, and I took a job, and that was 8 years ago. So my daughter was just, I think, 10 months at the time, and now I have two daughters since moving here. So
yeah, so you guys moved it right about the same time. That must have been a fun move with a pretty new baby.
Yeah, so it was one of those crazy times where a lot of things happened at once that you they consider the most stressful things to do, and we did all of them in 1 year. Have a baby, move, get a new job, and I was just coming off of doing the Ironman in Lake Placid also, so I was I was doing a lot of training at the time. It was a whirlwind of a year for me, but it worked out.
Yeah, got a lot of stuff done. That's awesome. So cool. So neither of you are native Vermonters, but you've both come to Burlington. There's so many people that come to Burlington and just love this area so much. So tell me a little bit about the idea for the game, like the game company. I'm sure it started as an idea for a game, right? It had to have.
So Concept Medley actually existed before I even moved to Vermont. I did a little bit of game development at a website called thegamecrafter.com, and I came up with just a random name as my company, but it wasn't a real company, just called Concept Medley. Because at the time I did a lot of wacky things. I programmed here and there. I did drawings. I did little videos. So the idea was it was a medley of ideas, concept medley. So that was where that name came from. And the first real big game I did was after moving to Vermont, like within the first few months. And I was still getting used to the area and not really knowing a lot of people. So I spent a lot of time designing a game at the time called Cromlin Periapsis, which is a time travel themed game where you're stopping an asteroid from hitting the Earth. And I entered it into a cooperative game contest, and it was a finalist. So that was kind of the first real big game under that name. And I kind of tucked that away for years until, let's see, what year was this, Donnie? 2015?
15? I think so.
Yep. Where I kind of dusted it off and said, hey, I like designing games. You like games. Let's do a contest together. And kind of brought it back. That's where Capital Vices showed up in its first incarnation for a contest. And then a couple of years later, we decided, okay, let's take this name a little bit farther. And we decided to not only put Capital Vices on Kickstarter, but also make Concept Medley an official business and registered it and everything.
Yeah, that was just last year that Concept Medley LLC was born.
That's great. But it's been a lot of different ideas, because reading through your about page, there's so much that you've done and just happening. That makes sense. I like the name. It's really a good representation of a lot of different ideas. So you've been busy, even though it's a new company, you've been busy for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. It just wasn't an official LLC before then. But even before Capital Vices and the Kickstarter, Donnie and I designed a couple of other games. One was a legacy game called Version Conflict, which was a runner-up in a contest. Are you familiar with what a legacy game is?
No, please talk about it, because I don't know that much, and I'm sure most of my listeners are just as interested as I am.
So a legacy board game is one that actually physically changes over time. And what that means is you might have a board that you play a couple times and you put stickers on it, or you'll have cards that you literally rip in half or cut, destroying them forever. The idea is, and then every time you play, the game's a little bit different than the last time you played. A lot of times secrets are revealed that you didn't even know were going to happen. So it's a full experience from start to the end of what's usually a campaign, or they call it the legacy, because the game is literally changing. The first big one to do it was, you may have heard of the game Risk. There's a game called Risk Legacy, which takes the regular game of Risk but makes it physically change over time.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, that makes sense. I've never heard of one where you rip cards up. I don't know that much about board games, but that sounds really entertaining. And yeah, just building a map. I've seen games where you build maps, but I've never seen things where you destroy it. So like you couldn't do the same thing again, really. That's interesting. I didn't even know that kind of thing existed. So are all of your games that exist right now, it's interesting that you're both developers, and I'm sure you've played with game development on a computer, but what I'm looking at looks like mostly card games.
So we have card games. We have some games that include a board. There's a game we're working on right now called Single Sort, which is basically just components, no cards at all. So we again, I guess we try to live up to our name of Concept Medley, where we just throw a lot of different ideas out there and try different things and try to bring some new mechanics or interesting mechanics to the space.
Awesome. So can you tell me a little bit more about your games? I know that Capital Vices was the big one that Carrie Winger talked about a lot. I think she really liked that game. Can you tell me a little bit more about that one and the other ones you saw? I was reading about the one where you have a flower patch. I forget what you referred to it as exactly. That one looked really cute, though.
So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Capital Vices. So that one we came up with because of an 18 card contest through the Game Crafter. The premise for the contest was you are limited to only 18 cards that fit in this thing called a hook box, and the hook box is a specially shaped piece of cardboard that folds onto itself, and the cards go inside of it. So once it's all packaged up, it just fits really neatly into your pocket. So the idea is basically, how do you pack a big punch in a little form. So we put all the rules, for example, on the inside of the hook box so that when you unfold it, everything you need is there to play. You have the rules in front of you and you have the 18 cards. And the game itself is based around the seven deadly sins. Corey had an idea from way back of trying to have actions associated with each of the seven deadly sins. For example, there's gluttony and having some action that depends on manipulating food, and then there's greed, which would have you manipulate money. So eventually, after a lot of design changes, we narrowed it down to that there are the seven deadly sin actions, and then there are resource cards that are double-sided. So if you flip it to one side, it's money, but if you flip it to the other side, it's food. And the premise for the game is that for every round, there is a configuration of resources that you want to avoid because you want to avoid the sin for the round. And whoever is the best at avoiding the sins wins if they get exactly 7 points after the rounds of play.
Oh, this is such a cool game. Like, I'm really interested in seeing this now. I'm looking at the little hook box you have online, and it's really, like, this is fascinating that it's so nicely packaged. I love nice packaging. Very smart. And I like the idea in general, just the idea of, like, food, gluttony, money. Like, it makes so much sense. It's very nice. I like the design. Very cool. And it looks like you can now... Can you play this one through printout, it looks like? Is that one of the games you can print out and buy online?
So both physically and digitally, it's available for sale. We are selling a few copies off of our store on our site physically, but that are left over from the Kickstarter. But there's also we were approached by PMP Arcade. It's that means PMP means print and play. So they're a website dedicated specifically to just games that people can print and then play, and then so they buy them online digitally, and then they can print them at home. We were approached by PMP Arcade for Capital Vices, so that's now on their store as well. So people can buy. It's just $1 there to get the print and play.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such a great thing for right now, and people can't really get to a store for things like this, but they are definitely looking for things to play with their family and things to do at home.
That's right. It's also available. We haven't really massively broadcast this. We're still working on it. It is also available, and there's a couple of really popular digital tabletop software simulators out there. One's called Tabletopia, and the other's called Tabletop Simulator. It's currently on Tabletopia, which allows you to play it completely digitally online with other players.
That's a really cool idea. And does it have this? They're going for the feel of playing it on a tabletop, though, since it's simulation, you're saying?
That's right. So there's no rules that are enforced. It's like you're at a real table where you're manipulating in a 3D space things that represent cards and dice and everything. So almost any game you can think of can be played in these virtual environments.
That's such a cool idea. I'm so excited for virtual reality and haptic gloves to really come around in the next 10 years or so. And then we can play games together while we're stuck at home dealing with plagues.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really the missing piece is the being able to actually interact with it virtually. Right now, it's still kind of. I think you can use VR with it. I don't have one, so I don't really know, but it's pretty much mostly using your mouse at this point.
It's so close, though. They're getting there, and it's so exciting. Oh, cool. Okay, so tell me, we've talked about Capital Vices. Let's talk about one of your other games. What's your oldest game that you have for sale right now?
So our oldest game is the one that I said was originally named Crom and Periapsis. Has been since renamed to 27 Panic. The judge of the contest, his name's Chris Letter. He loved it, and he said it was very close to winning. He's actually a famous designer in his own right now. His most popular game is called Roll For It. But his number one criticism was the name of the game. Cromlin Periapsis. Yeah,
because I kind of liked it.
I like to pick names that when you throw them in Google, it's going to be the only thing you get. The problem is it's a very complicated pronounced name. If it's all you see, if you never heard anyone say it. It also doesn't make a lot of sense of what the game is. But the Cromlin comet is a real comet, and it reaches what it's known as its periapsis, or its closest distance to Earth, every 27 years. So the theme of the game was that in the year 2038, its periapsis that year, it was actually going to collide with Earth, and so you have to travel back in time to its previous 4 periapses to launch rockets at it to disintegrate it into nothing, so this doesn't happen, to save the Earth. So that's where the name comes from. Its scientific name is 27P, so that's how I changed it to 27 Panic, 27P ANIC.
That makes sense.
Just so it's a little bit easier to say, although it's still a name that's maybe a little vague, but that's the oldest game, and it's our.
It looks adorable, I've got to say. I like that you have the pictures online so you can kind of see what the gameplay is like, and it looks so cute. It reminds me of another game, because I don't know game names. I can't pull it off the top of my head, but it looks super cute, where you're building roads. And
the big mechanic in that game is so any railroad track that you build in 1 year ripples forward in every year forward. So you're trying to do this kind of path building, route building, in all 4 of these years simultaneously. And anytime you build one in the past, it's going to affect the ones in the future. So you got to kind of it's a big puzzle that you're working out.
Very cool. Yeah, this is such a cute idea. I love all of these games are so cool. It's so cool that you're in Vermont. Do you have a storefront in town anywhere, or are you kind of living online right now?
Yeah, we're mostly living online. We do try to make it to as many conferences as we can. There's one conference that, of course, is postponed this year. It was the Games Expo. Corey, do you remember what it was actually? Was it like Champlain Valley?
The Champlain Games Festival?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've heard of that one. Yep, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. So we try to, have people be able to come and visit us and see the physical games and interact. We don't typically sell from those places, but, it's not just the case that people can only see them online and then, don't know what they're getting in the mail, that sort of thing.
Right. Oh, cool. And obviously were you selling your games through the boardroom? I know you had games there.
The only game being sold through the boardroom is Capital Vices. That's the only one we've really done mass production on. The remainder of the games that we're selling, at least, are print on demand. So basically, if someone buys it, they buy it from thegamecrafter.com, and it will get printed on demand. So we don't exactly have a stock of any of our other games.
Right.
Then we have games that we're not selling at all because either we're trying to finish them or perfect them before we're willing to, because we don't want to put anything out until it's perfect. But also we try to shop games around to other publishers potentially that maybe we can get a broader, cast a broader net.
Makes sense. Yeah, these games look so cool. I just keep on looking at the pictures. I love your marketing. Do you have someone who's specifically doing marketing? Or are you guys doing that yourself? The graphic design, I guess, is the technical term.
We do it all ourselves. We're admittedly not the best graphic designers, and in fact, we're hoping to pair up with maybe more professional people eventually as we get bigger. But we do it. We work with what we have.
I really like some of them. Some of them really. I like the one I was just looking at, 27 Panic. I really like the pictures on the top of the screen here. The 4 years with the trains. I love it. It evokes the 90s in my heart, and it makes me happy. I don't know if that's what you were going for, but it makes me happy at least.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
Okay, so let's talk about one of your other games. So there's LHC. What's LHC stand for?
So LHC stands for Large Hadron Collider. It's a collider, like a subatomic particle collider that's located in Geneva. It's a few miles underground. I forget exactly, but it was for a contest, and the premise of the contest was a game based on an existing location, another 18 card game based on a real location. So we decided to go with LHC, and in the game you are trying to discover 5 antiparticles before your opponent does. So it's a two-player game, plays in roughly 20 minutes.
Such a cool idea. This one looks so good too. I love there's some science, like you actually have some thought behind all these games. They're really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of our kind of mantras or trademarks is we try to marry mechanics very, very tightly with theme. You'll see a lot of games, and there's nothing wrong with this. Different people have different design policies, where there's a theme kind of slapped onto a mechanic just to give it a theme, or some games are completely abstract, or different things. And so, like when we come up with our games, we try to make sure that what you're doing in the game has a thematic tie to what the game is, and we are constantly fighting with that because that creates its own challenge. But it also helps sometimes, and by that I mean, uh, if we know what we are in the game, then we know what kind of things we want to be able to do. So then we try to turn that into a function in the game itself. But then sometimes you get too far where you're like, well, this is hurting the game. So you have to start making some compromises. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to make our themes very much close to what the mechanics of the game are as well.
Right. Yeah, it feels like you're actually doing what you're talking about doing, which a lot of games, like the game of life, you roll a dice and like then you had a baby. Like, is that anything like having a baby in real life? Like it's a very like standard kind of silly, and you just kind of like you said, you put that like wrapper on it. Like this is my theme.
I
But
don't know. Some people roll the dice.
this is true. Some people definitely approach life like the game of life.
Yeah.
But I can see what you mean though, because this game, the Large Hydrogen Collider, this is so cool. Like I love the concept of this, that you've got to find antiparticles. Like this is so awesome. And I could see kids actually being like, if you showed this to kids, they would be interested in what you're talking about too, and actually want to learn a little bit more about the hydrogen collider. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean we're a couple of nerds, and so we try to go like pick themes that have some weight to them. It's at the surface, it's just a game, but if you wanted to think more about it, if you wanted to read up more about it, there's a lot behind it.
Yeah, a lot of intelligence. Like there's a lot of thought behind this. It's cool. I like this. This is really exciting.
Yeah, we take real things and we do a lot of research to see words that are similar or meaningful or concepts that make sense. Like I said, the Cromlech Comet, 27 years, that's a real thing. But then you take it to the fictional state to turn it into a game. But it is at its core based on some reality.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just kind of picking through so we can talk about them all because they're all so cool. Version conflict. Let's talk about this, which if you're a nerd, you might know what version conflict is. But for anyone else, would you care to explain?
Corey, you want to take that one?
Sure thing. I do want to credit Donnie with the name because I do love the name when we were trying to come up with the name. But the theme of the game is you are two rival play testers. I guess you're not really rivals, but you're two play testers for a video game. And you'll notice that the art is very retro. It's kind of supposed to be symbolic of a mid 90s side-scrolling fighter game, like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, those kind of games. And so you're playtesters for a game company that are creating new characters for a new fighting game, and you're helping them playtest these characters to get the most out of them, to make sure that they're adequate characters in the game. And this is what I was saying is our legacy game. So it's the one that changes over time. So it has a very sandboxy field. So from each, what we call each game is actually called a version. You're upgrading your version of your character. So you are putting stickers on your cards that represent your fighter deck, and they change over time, meaning they're going to get new moves. They'll be able to do new things in battle or in fights over time. And the game, so the deck is physically changing over time. And we throw some other kind of secrets in there along the way that you don't really see coming. But it's a two-player legacy game where you're constantly fighting the other player. Hence, version conflict also has the kind of the software-y tie-in. It's a double entendre there. But what's really cool at the end of this game is the deck that you've built over the course of the game or the legacy, you could actually use against other players who finished the legacy. So it doesn't have to end there. You can keep playing to see how your deck came out after a legacy versus how other people ended up building it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like this. This is another really cool looking game. All of your games seem so cool. Like you don't have one that you guys are even saying that you're like, we don't really like this one, or this could have been better. It seems like you really put enough effort into them that you're really proud of all of them.
Yeah, I mean those games exist, but we wouldn't be willing to share them unless we thought they were, playable games. These are the games that we finished and decided we want to start showing off. And there's a number that we've finished that we aren't even showing here. But then there's the group of games that we never finished or didn't feel were good enough and didn't continue on.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, if you have this many ideas, you've got to have things evolving, and that's just the nature of developing anything. You just come up with loads of different ideas, and some of them you sit on for 20 years and then all of a sudden you make something out of, and some of them they just don't become anything, or it just doesn't come to fruition.
Right. We like one game that we're working on right now, that Corey mentioned, Single Sort. It started out as a completely different idea with a completely different name and different mechanics, and it just kind of evolved into what it is now. And we're super happy with what it became, but we don't want to sort of throw away the original idea either. So that's something that we've sort of put on the shelf and said we'll come back to it. But we do know that some ideas need to stay in the oven a little bit longer than others.
Yep. Version Conflict, same thing. That was a different game to start, and we still have that idea on the back burner.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Of what it originally was too. Oh no, that's right. We used that for we used the idea that was originally Version Conflict for QSCon.
That's right.
Nice. Yeah, that's such a cool idea. I'm so glad you guys are doing this, and I hope that our stores can open again soon, and we can all start going and playing games with each other again. Oh man, it's been a downer. So I wanted to ask you, because life is crazy right now, how has life changed for you guys? Are you both working from home full time?
Yep, working from home full time. For me, it's been a real adjustment because when going back 9 years, when I first moved up here, I didn't have a job. So I started freelancing for my previous job, working from home and just doing work that I knew how to do back in Manhattan from my home. And I hated it. That lasted 2 weeks until I was like, okay, nope, I need to find a job. I need to get out of the house. I can't stay here looking at these four walls. And so I was dreading having to work from home 9 years later because of, social distancing. But it's different. Thankfully, it's gotten better. My team, we voice and face chat a lot more often than I thought I would get used to. And it does help, as you were saying, like sort of having sort of face to face and seeing people's body language, that sort of thing. It does help a great deal. But also, I feel like I get a lot done here as well. I was afraid that, I would be distracted or that I would just go stir crazy, but I find myself actually getting a lot done. But yeah, it's still tough. I still miss the human contact. I miss getting out of the house every morning and having that 20-minute commute where I can listen to the podcast I want to listen to or just the music that I want to. So it's been an adjustment.
Yeah, I'm about in the same boat. It's been very weird. And I feel like if I had a dedicated office, that working from home would be much easier. Like I would be able to focus better. I'm basically in a studio apartment, which makes working from home really hard, I'm finding, because everything distracting in my life is right in my lap as I'm trying to focus on work, which is very, very distracting. There's not really a better way to say it than that, I guess. It's just I feel distracted all day and it's hard trying to focus. But I feel lucky too at the same time. I still have a job and I can work from home.
Right. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Yeah, how has it been for you, Corey? You said you have kids, so I'm sure that's interesting.
Yeah, so I was never a work from home guy either. But you adapt it. And I think Donnie kind of covered that part. The other element is our game design stuff has kind of taken a hit because
Hmm.
a lot of times we would meet up and share our ideas. So we have to find different ways to do that. And it's interesting how quickly things are changing. We're on Discord right now, and I think a month ago I probably had one Discord channel, and it was probably our Concept Medley Discord channel. And I'm looking at it now, and I have 11 that I've joined in the
Yep.
last month. Yeah. Um, and they're all other game design related channels that I'm trying to get involved in because that's kind of the new way that we communicate now. All of a sudden, we talked about the virtual environments. Worked really hard getting a lot of our games in there so that if we needed to pitch it to somebody or show someone or play test, that they would be ready to go. There's virtual cons popping up. So Donnie mentioned that the convention that we were going to go to is postponed. Already there's like 3 or 4 virtual board game conventions that I've learned about that looking at going to or attending virtually. So it's just kind of a new landscape right now, and it's changed so fast, and people are adapting. And we have to do the same thing if we want to keep our designs going and keep getting attention to them. It's interesting though because it was a lot harder to maybe contact other publishers, other designers, because you'd have to go physically to a convention. Well, now we're in a place where they can't go anywhere either. So if you all you have to do is attend virtually, and that's all they can do, it actually might be a little bit easier to get a hold of them.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's such a weird world we live in because we always kind of were pushing away social media, that it's making us more disconnected. But now that this has happened, that's the only way we're connected, and we're finding ways to do things like play board games together and actually have some social interaction. Unlike Words with Friends, I think of that one where it was kind of like a social interaction, but not really. Like it really wasn't. You didn't get the same feeling you would from playing an actual board game with people in your home. But we're trying to emulate that now. We're actually trying to make that work, like making a virtual reality 3D platform. Like that's such a great idea. Bring people together, try and actually keep that same human contact. Because I find a lot of video games, you're not really emotionally connected. People actually like to hide behind the anonymous factor of being online.
Oh
But
yeah.
with board games, that's the total opposite. Like the whole point is to actually be there and, have a social interaction.
Right, and that's one of the things that I've been missing too is just getting together with friends regularly and being able to sit around a table and laugh and talk and interact and play a game, but also just be social with them. With outside of the context of say work or some other like obligation. And we are trying. We had a monthly get together group. We used to last year we played one legacy game once a month for the 12 months, and we tried to keep that going. And we actually last month we had a session where when we went to Tabletopia and we played a game sitting around the virtual table. And this Tuesday we're going to have another session.
Oh, cool. That's such a wonderful thing to hear. It's such a great idea. I'm so happy that the internet is here with us today and that it's come so far.
Oh yeah.
And because I just think if this had happened in 2002, we were
Yes.
not at the point of being able to video chat. Like even voice chat back then was sketchy. Like
Right.
there was nothing great going on. So we're really blessed to have the internet and to have all the talented web developers and people who've made all of these apps that we use, that we can actually communicate with each other in a way that feels pretty real. Like it feels like we're having a pretty real conversation right now. And we've never actually met in person, which hopefully will change at some point.
Right.
Definitely. No, we're looking forward to you mentioned the boardroom, and Carrie, we're looking forward to getting back there because before this went down, we were already talking about trying to put together, we know a few other designers in town, and putting together regular meetups there that we could play test each other's games or, just have something more normal and out in the open with the public so that we could do it more often. But then, that the whole pandemic put kind of a damper on things.
Yeah,
Yes.
before the pandemic, we had a concept medley night at the Boardroom Cafe, and it was great. It was the first one. It was kind of a proof of concept, but I think it worked out. We had our games available for people, the physical games for people to play. We even had a new game there that people hadn't seen before. It was the first time that I put it on a table for people to play. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting back to that.
Such a great thing to hear. I love the boardroom so much. That was probably one of my favorite businesses that I've had someone come on the show and talk about. Just because it was such a great community hub type place where people really could come and make friends with other people. That was
Yep.
the nice thing, is it didn't feel like most restaurants, you don't really, I don't know, you don't really start up a conversation with other people sitting in the restaurant normally.
Right.
Maybe, but not normally. But I feel like at the boardroom, it just kind of happens so naturally because people were so excited pointing out games. What game are you playing? And I think every time I went in there, I just kind of ended up talking to other people that were in there, which is what we need. We need a lot of that in this day and age. And I just really hope that everyone goes and supports the boardroom and supports things like that in the area. And the idea of bringing I didn't even realize there's other board game makers in this area because no, I didn't know that. So it's wonderful to hear about and get the exposure.
Right. Right. And
Yeah,
it's,
there's been a couple. Oh, go ahead, Donnie.
no, I was just going to say that, having a hub like that, it's just perfect because it's a perfect sort of combination of people who just like and love games and people who make games and people who just want someplace cool to hang out.
Right. Like the casual kind of person. That was because I'm not hugely serious about gaming, but I think it's fun for
Yeah.
me. I like to play games with my friends, but I don't know anything about Magic. I have some friends who love Magic and they're so into it. But I could never do it. But that is such a perfect place for the blend of the serious gamer to the casual gamer, and just a great place to hang out and meet people and bring everyone together.
Yeah.
So yeah, games have changed a lot over the last decade, like a ton. And so you bring up Magic, and that's a huge game. But it's a particular type of game. Games have spanned such a large breadth of interest now that like you can almost find a game for anybody. That you pick a person if they like games at all. I don't even mean board games, but any kind of game. I bet I could find a game that's right for them, just because there's so many different games out there now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Walking through the boardroom was an eye opener for me because when I think of Magic. That's like the game I thought of because people were so into it. I think of Magic and Munchkin and then like Sorry and Life and the old school kind of games. I didn't realize how many there were, but walking through I felt like a kid in a toy store because that's basically what I was. I had no idea there were so many types of games and creative, intelligent, smart games. The one of the ones that stood out to me was I think it's called Terraforming Mars. Like
Hmm.
these just fascinating, beautiful games that people come up with. It was so cool. It just made me really excited because I wanted to play them with other people and show other people these games.
Yeah, that's a huge game. And so the themes, like what you're mentioning, are kind of, again, historical, stereotypical games of fantasy and space. And those are all great games and those are great for people. But what you'll see now is there's genres that are themes that you just didn't used to see. The most popular game right now is probably Wingspan, which is about birds.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a game I got behind me. It's about stained glass windows, which is a fantastic game for families or anybody. Um, the game that you mentioned of mine earlier, the garden, that's Pocket Apiary, and the theme of
Yes.
that game is just bees. It's beekeeping. So the idea in that game is you're luring bees to your garden, collecting nectar, turning it into honey. So these kind of like really lighthearted themes now that are more accessible to that the kind of themes like fantasy and space and all those kind of historical game themes that might have turned a lot of people off are not the only kind of games they make anymore.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the Pocket Apiary game because I love the whoever did the artwork on this one. It's so cute. It reminds me of something that you'd see in like a kid's book.
Yeah, so that art was bought from a website called Pond 5, which is a website where you can purchase art for commercial use. So that's what we did there. So we cannot take credit for the art in that case, but
It's a very wise design choice, though.
yeah. I'm really happy with how they turned out, and it's just a kind of a micro engine builder. It was made for a mint tin contest. So in the case for this game, this contest, all the components had to fit in a mint tin, like Altoid mints, that size. So the entire game fits in a mint tin that size, and it's just a deck of cards and some cubes. And on your turn, you move a bee. You can collect some cubes. If you move a bee to the tin itself, which is also part of the game, it's the hive. You can turn it into honey, and those kind of things score points. And so it plays in about 20 minutes, and whoever has the highest score at the end wins. And it's been a pretty popular game that we're still trying to perfect, but we have high hopes for it.
Yeah, that one looks like something I would give my nieces for Christmas or something. In all honesty, it looks adorable and like something that they would want me to play with them endlessly. Very cool. So, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you guys want to talk about? I know I send my document out about what we're going to talk about, and it's much more of a conversation. I don't usually cover every single thing in this document. What's your favorite part of living in Burlington? That's a good one to end on.
Let's see, if you had asked me this 9 years ago, it would have been the mountains, but I've since gotten old and brittle, so I don't do that anymore. Another thing that I loved, like after moving up here, I discovered birds. I hadn't really been into birds at all, and then I moved up here and lived in Charlotte and saw these weird looking creatures outside my back window. So I bought a book and a pair of binoculars and was like hooked ever since. So
Very
I think,
cool.
yeah, the great thing about Burlington is that it's a small city. It's super close to nature. So you get sort of that taste of a city, but I mean, there's so much beauty and greenery and there's the lake and everything. So that attracts a large amount of bird diversity. So that's a thing that I really like about this area is that it has a great feel for everything, right? You get a taste of a city living, you get a taste of the suburbs and rural and like water. So it's got everything.
Yeah, it really does. We're pretty lucky. Have you ever gotten to see an osprey before?
Oh yeah. I saw one the other day. It was magnificent. I just took a drive because you can't really go anywhere, but if you stay in your car, you're safe. So I just
You could drive
took a
around.
quick drive through to the islands, and there's all the nests that line the highway through there. So they're really amazing.
Cool. Awesome. How about you, Corey? What's your favorite thing in this area?
Real quick, I'm going to mention it because Donnie probably won't. Johnny actually took his bird viewing love that he acquired here and turned it into a pretty awesome roll and write game that's currently a semifinalist in a contest as well. Roll and write games are ones typically where dice are rolled and you write on a piece of paper. Think Yahtzee.
Oh, cool.
Where that was kind of the OG of roll and writes. But they've done a lot of interesting things with roll and write games these days. And Donnie's is called Bird Spot. It's a really neat game. And give
That's
them a
awesome.
shout out there.
Well,
Thanks, Corey.
congrats. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool to hear about. Who knows? It might be the new bird game since Wingspan's blown up.
Yeah, I try to think of it as like a companion to Wingspan. Wingspan is you're collecting birds. This one is you're trying to photograph birds.
Cool. That makes sense. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of bird watchers are photographers, so makes sense.
Yeah.
But as for my favorite thing about Burlington, I mentioned in my intro that I grew up in a small town near Syracuse. My graduating class was 77 people. I don't know, something like that. So I just like that it's small because that's what I'm comfortable with. But I also I do like cities too. I just don't want to really live in one. But I kind of get some of that, a taste of that with Burlington. You know what I mean? Where you can still go down there. There's great restaurants. There's things to do. You can hang out downtown a little bit without it being a giant pain in the neck to stay in traffic or getting in and out of town. So
Right.
and then on top of that, you have the nature. You have the lake, the mountains, the woods, all of that. I didn't mention that I actually don't ski and I don't know how to. And
I don't
feel like
either. I'm a native Vermonter and I have no idea how to ski, so no
I
worries.
always feel so out of place, but I do love the summers here are amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yep, can't beat the summer here. It really is like paradise on earth.
the funny thing, so like I grew up near Syracuse, which is known for getting like the most snow of any city in the country.
Right, yeah. Don't you guys get like 20 feet in obnoxious numbers like that?
They're so proud of the snow. They have this thing called the Golden Snowball, which is they self-awarded trophy to the city that gets the most snow in New York. So the thing is, we didn't have mountains, so skiing wasn't. I mean, there's some skiing, but it's not a big thing there. So we all kind of learned to hate snow almost, but also be proud that we had so much of it.
Yeah, that's like how I feel about snow. Is we're supposed to like it because we're it's Vermont and it's very picturesque and the skiing is very important to the state. But man, I don't like the cold. I like the summer.
Yeah, totally.
But if we didn't have snow, I'd be kind of mad about it. Like it's our right. We deserve our snow, but I don't like it. That's great. Okay, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about before we sign off for the day?
I don't know. I think we just wanted to dive a little bit into single sort because that's kind of our big next game to kind of get people amped up for it because we're really proud of it.
Yeah, tell me all about it.
The theme in this game is actually recycling, so that might even resonate pretty well in this region. It literally comes in a box that looks like a recycling bin, and it's just a bunch of components. It has cardboard tiles, plastic dice, glass gems, and metal cubes. So it has all these recyclable components that are actually game components as well. And you're just kind of consuming, the theme again is a single sort recycling center where you can basically dump all the recyclables at one place and they get sorted out. And so that's what you're doing. You're sorting out certain elements, and at the end of the game, you get points for different arrangements of components, and highest score wins.
This is such a great idea. This sounds amazing. I want to see this concept come to life because it sounds so great. I want a little trash recycling bin. That sounds so cool. So, yeah, you are the recycling plant. You're doing the sorting, but then there's an element. Are you building things as you're recycling, like you're making a new thing out of the recycled components?
In a way, yes. So you're putting components back into the pile to get new ones out. For example, and we named all the actions after what we discovered are the 7 R's. You probably are familiar with the main 3: reduce, reuse, recycle. But there's actually a few more. But for example, there's an action called reduce that we came up with, where you put cardboard in the pile to pull plastic back out. So you're recycling your components and do better components to score more points.
Right, that makes sense because obviously there's a gaming aspect of it. That's really cool, though. That's such a smart idea. I love all of your game ideas because they're like beekeeping. That's a really important thing. We need to talk about saving our honeybees, making sure that they have food and they're, not being poisoned. Very important. It's just, I love all of these ideas. Talking about recycling, such a good idea and such a good message to give people.
Yeah, and we're not trying to be, in your face about it. It's just a theme, and you can take from it what you want. But we do actually, without again making a big deal about it, we actually did some research on what kind of recycling happens at these centers and which types of plastic can even happen. So, as you know, a 6-sided die has 6 numbers on it. So we made those numbers representative of the numbers that you see on your plastic, in that little triangle. And certain numbers are more recyclable than others at these centers are actually called MRFs. And so that's actually represented in the game. If you have a certain number, 1 and 2, those are always recyclable. Those will always score points. But numbers like 3 and 5 are only sometimes recyclable. 4 which is usually the type of plastic that like plastic bags
Yep.
are made out of, which are MRFs are generally not recyclable. You get 0 points if you hang on to those. Just that sort of thing.
Very smart. Great idea. This one sounds like a really cool idea. And just the idea that you think about it that much, that you pull in the design aspect, you make it something that people are going to be drawn to. And then you actually teach them things like, okay, so the 5's not as great. The 4 is really not good. Like that's really smart. That's very well thought out.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time going back and forth about sort of where to draw the line of, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense thematically, but it's not fun, versus, oh, this is so much fun, but it really just hurts the theme. So, and the other thing is that we've been working on this remotely. We started it together, having meeting at lunch and, talking about ideas, but then Corey had a version of our game printed up and sent to him, and I've never touched it, and I really want to so bad. So we had to actually play it like virtually. He not only we put the pieces, he took the time to put everything into Tabletopia, but then he also went and programmed a version that we can play on the internet, and we've been play testing with that, and he takes the time to tweak the number values and the scoring and all that. So
awesome.
It's been a journey.
Well, it's good that you're able to continue working on it. That's what I was going to ask, is how is this slowing you up in the process of making that? This one sounds like, because you said it's a little recycling bin, like there's going to be some production, like there's going to be some work behind that one. So, but it sounds like it's still coming along.
Right.
Yeah, it was originally meant for a contest that was supposed to be, I think, ended by now. Actually, it might have been today or tomorrow. But that, because of everything going on, that even that contest deadline got pushed to June. So we actually have even more time than we thought to work on it.
Well, that's good. And you can actually make use of it online.
Yeah. But, with or without the contest, I'm particularly happy with this game. I know Donnie is. And we're definitely going to be making this one available.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. That sounds so great. And thank you so much, guys, for talking to me today and just sharing all of this information about the games. They all sound so good. I can't wait to see them. I want to go back to the boardroom as soon as possible and play games and see your games, because I know she had at least one of them.
Right. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Donnie and Corey for being on the show today. It was really great talking with them. It was really fun hearing about all these games. Some of them are so cute. You should really go online and check them out. conceptmedley.com. If you head over to burlingtontalks.com, there will be show notes up in the next few days, and I should have more links to Concept Medley's webpage, to all their different games, and to a few different sites that we talked about. Thank you so much for enjoying this episode with me. I hope you liked it. I love it when people reach out to me. You can go to burlingtontalks.com. You can go find me on Facebook. You can find me all over the place. I love it when people talk to me, so please talk to me. The show's music is made by Jason Baker. Jason was a guest on the show a while back, and I really love the show music, so if you guys have any thoughts, let me know. Thanks again, everybody. That's what's new in the 802.